Welcome to A&M News, and this is Avijit Nandi Majumdar bringing to you a very different yet an interesting personality. Mahima Khanna, she is a very senior economist in the World Bank and she's here in Kolkata at the moment. Thank you for taking your time out, Mahima. Let me start off with why did you choose to become an economist?
Oh, that's a long story. So as you know, and many people from Calcutta may know, both my parents are doctors in Calcutta. But somehow I did not want to be a doctor. I was very inclined with logic and math. And back in early 2000s, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And I Googled, and Google showed economics as a subject with math and logic. So that's really how I picked economics as subject to study. I then went to Xavier's in Calcutta and then Cambridge and then joined the World Bank. And it's done me very well, and I really enjoyed economics. I think it grounds you in reality and it allows you to be very logical in personal and professional life.
So you're one of those personalities who made it big, one of those Indians who made it big into the world circuit, right from Kolkata, isn't it?
Still making it big, to put it rightly. I'd say it's still making it big. I've definitely done some things very successfully, but I still have a lot more that I could do and I should do. And so I'd say it's still work in progress.
Before we come to the economics of it, what exactly are you doing? What concentrating on at the moment?
So right now, I'm a senior economist at the World Bank in the International Finance Corporation. So that's the private sector arm of the World Bank. I lead our work on 6 SAARC countries. That includes India. In addition, there's Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, and Maldives. So I coordinate with the government and with our private sector colleagues and the World Bank's public sector team on what we will do in each of these 6 countries every year. So both in the short term, in the medium term, in the long term. We have a very detailed country partnership framework or strategies which articulate what the government wants us to do and how we will deliver. So I lead the work on that for these 6 countries. As you may know, there are a number of research documents that also come out from the World Bank. And so the ones that come on the private sector side for these countries are from my team. That's in a nutshell.
So what are your priority sector, if you can put it on a level of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5? What are the 5 priority sectors as far as this part of the world is concerned? And what are the priority sectors as far as India is concerned?
So South Asia and Africa are the 2 main priority regions for the world, right? Any development finance institutions, these 2 are the 2 main, including the World Bank, including Asian Development Bank, including all of them. So priority in these regions in South Asia and India includes financial inclusion. There are billions of people. Financial inclusion is not where it should be. So making sure every single person has a bank account, knows how to transact digitally, has the capacity to save money is a big priority area. Ensuring food security is also another priority area because, as you know, with shortages due to ongoing issues in Europe and ban on products such as rice, etc., it makes it difficult. So ensuring food security for all is big. And I think what everyone knows, and it's pretty obvious, is climate change. So how do you ensure that all countries have the right mix of renewable energy and have a sustainable environment is very, very important. India has a lot of potential. India is our biggest portfolio. We do a lot in India and we hope to continue doing a lot in India. And these are some of the areas we look to continue focusing on. So green infrastructure, improvements in logistics, financial inclusion would be, I would say, the 3 main in my view. I'd say, let me mention that again, this is not the corporate World Bank's view, this is my personal view.
Absolutely. Now coming to 2 very interesting and very important issues. Number 1 is the climate change that you mentioned. Number 2 is when you mention about digital payments, then you come about cyber security. So first, let me focus on the climate change. So how successful do you think South Asian countries have been to adopt these climate change measures, renewable energy measures? How successful they have been? Are they moving in the right direction? What do you personally feel about that? I mean, you've been working on this, so you'll be able to throw some light on it.
Moving in the right direction, yes. How successful, I think it's yet to be seen, because the progress towards this whole thing has recently started, right? With the COP27 agenda, people have been making commitments, and milestones are yet to be reached to see how successful or not it is. But definitely moving in the right direction. For the region as a whole, India has taken phenomenal strides. There's so much innovation happening in new areas such as green hydrogen, renewable energy plants. EVs also, I'm very amazed to see the amount of progress in India in terms of electrical vehicles, charging stations, green buses. So all the positive signs, all moving in the right direction, and it's yet to be seen how
Do you
successful.
personally, do you feel, honestly speaking, that you need to find an alternate to coal
Yes.
for climate change?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I
So,
think there are numerous studies which show the impact of coal on the environment. And I see, given the size of India, given the variety in terrains, right? So you have ample of mountainous regions with water flowing at speed, you have hills, you have places with phenomenal wind capacity. Why not leverage on those, right? It's has its positives, and it can also help India be a leader in this space if done correctly.
correct. So in a study, I mean, when you go take those feedbacks and look at in the future, so what's the time frame that you see that an alternate to coal realistically is possible?
I would say it needs to happen definitely by 2050 globally. Can some countries do it faster than the others? Sure. But yes, realistically, if we want to not miss climate change targets by 2050, it does need to happen.
We see a lot of wildfires in the Western countries. That's given. I mean, whatever
In
when you say
America,
America and all,
very
and then
common. Yeah.
they are all pushing it towards the climate change. I mean, this is climate change responsible for having these wildfires. We haven't had such kind of wildfires in this part of the world. Not South Asian countries. Fortunately, we haven't had that. But we have different kind of this. So, do you foresee? I mean, do you foresee such things coming this side also? Or are there any ways to stop them?
So I'm not a climate expert, and I can't really comment on whether or not wildfires can come this side. I think it's a combination of factors which causes it to happen with frequency there, and such an environment is not available here. But I did read in the press a few months back that India, in particular Calcutta, had the hottest day in a very long time, right? I think temperatures were north of 100 degrees Fahrenheit consecutively. So that itself is an indication. And no matter where you go, it's just very, very hot. And it doesn't get very cold anymore. So climate change is pretty real in that sense. How it takes shape, which places feel what, that needs to be seen. And I'm sure the climate experts who look at this more deeply would be better suited to answer
Absolutely,
that.
because this is directly linked with the economic of our country. We see Arctic and Antarctic regions, the snow is getting absolutely affected because of this climate change scenario. Rainfalls are slowing down, the crops are not coming up, and then the entire economy is changing overall. So we need to focus completely on that. And second point, that South Asian countries has a huge target to meet. That's what a lot of people say, a lot of discussions going on. That is the fuel emission from public vehicles. So, do you think it's really moving in a satisfactory direction?
So, I think the government has taken a lot of correct actions with the EV buses. It's more popular, I think, in Delhi and Maharashtra, etc. I haven't really seen EV buses in Calcutta. Though I did see a charging station.
EV buses are there. The government has introduced some.
I saw a charging station opposite the correction center, but I haven't seen any buses this trip. But yes, I think the emission reduction from that is significant because growing up in Calcutta, I remember how much of fumes would come out from these buses, right? Like if you were standing there, you would be all black. So that itself. EV and the FAME policies have had their positives and negatives, and they've gone through cycles. But I think once they come up with the right set of policies and incentives which can be useful, it should lead to a more widespread adoption of electric vehicles. Gradually, if there are more EVs on the road, you'd see better public infrastructure as well, right? Better roads, more charging stations. It should lead to overall development. I'll give you an example of another country, Egypt, which hosted COP in November of last year. And so the government in that case, because they were hosting COP and the whole focus was on climate change, they converted the Sharm el-Sheikh region into a green city or green area. So only electric vehicles were allowed. And what that resulted was zero pollution, lots of charging stations everywhere. The roads were fantastic. It transformed, and there were just buses. So it was all green everywhere. So I think gradually it will come. And the government is also very committed on this whole greening agenda. Whether it happens all over India at the same time at the same pace, I don't know, but I'm sure the wave will come.
Now, if we talk about hardcore economics, do you feel that this part, South Asian countries, India, Bangladesh, Nepal, Maldives, they are progressing the economics, the difference between the rich and the poor? Because in Bangladesh, as we see, the difference between the rich and the poor is very huge. I mean, that doesn't talk about good economics as they say. I don't know. I'm not an economics student.
So I think if you look in terms of growth, which is the key indicator of development and progress. So both India, Bangladesh have done very well in the last 5 to 10 years. India continues to be one of the fastest growing emerging markets, and Bangladesh is also very close. So both these countries are doing very well, and they are pulling the region forward. Some of the other markets have their issues, and I'm sure everyone's read in the press about Sri Lanka, but they are also undergoing an IMF program, and they are taking the right steps and moving in the right direction. So there should also be progress or growth coming from there.
Isn't it true that some of the countries have taken a lot of loan, some of these South Asian countries, and this transforms when you talk about loans and you talk about developing economies, then you are bundled with loans. So how do you progress? Like, for example, Pakistan is net dependent loan. So do you think that this really can transform into a good economy?
See, taking a loan is not a wrong thing, right?
Okay.
Everyone takes a loan. To buy a car, to buy a house, everyone takes a loan. It's what you do with that loan and how you manage the payment cycle, which can work in your favor or not in your favor. So I guess the way I would answer it is growth comes from having the right building blocks to build your house, right? It's nothing. A country's growth is nothing like building a house. If you have the right foundations and you have the means to get all the building materials to build the house, growth will happen. Once you've built the house, you then need means to convert the house into a home and make it functional. So if you have those and you can continuously provide those, growth will come in that country. If there is an issue with any of these, then it goes into a crisis mode or it makes it more vulnerable. And I will not respond on your question directly, and I will leave it at that.
I understand. So, as an economist, as a student of economics, as somebody who has really studied economics and is dealing with it, do you think the progress in the development in these South Asian countries, you have been studying these countries, is satisfactory?
Yes, very good. India, doing phenomenally well. You see all the World Bank Group projections which come out every March and October. India is by far the leading developing country in EM. It has consistently grown at 7% or more. I think the outlook for the next few years is also 6 to 7%, which is very good. Given COVID, given everything else that has happened in the last few years, India is leading the curve. Along with it, Bangladesh is also, as I said, doing very well. They have some very strong engines of growth, which is promoting them. And together they are pulling the region forward. Sri Lanka is also recovering from their crisis. They have an ongoing program with IMF. Growth should come back to about 1% next year. And Nepal, Bhutan are also recovering from COVID with tourism coming in again, remittance flows coming in. So overall, very good outlook for the region.
And lastly, I want to know, what are the basics when you say this country is doing good because of tourism, because of agriculture? So if you can you specify what are the basic standpoint on which a country's economy stands? Basically for India, is it agriculture, or just for example?
India is too big. India is too big, right? So India has a lot of different things which go into it. But typically the way any economist would look at a country is to see what so growth is a combination of consumption, investment, and then things which go out. So very simply, consumption and investment. So consumption comes from things like agriculture, food, consumables, etc. Investment comes from things which support infrastructure development. So that can be buildings, roads, power, etc. So depending on how these are functioning in a country, it would think. The other component to look at it is net exports. So what comes into the country from outside and what goes out of the country. So in many countries where you have people leaving the country to go outside to work, remittances plays a big role, as is the case with Nepal. Some countries which are small, very dependent on tourism, then tourism really drives the economy because that's what brings US dollars into the country. When people come in, it gives employment to local staff who work in hotels, etc. India, very different, because India has pretty much every single vertical there is to a growth story, right? You have industries, you have a very strong financial sector, you have manufacturing, you have agriculture, you have everything. So to look at India, it's a whole gamut of everything. So along with growth, which is GDP growth, the other thing to be mindful of is also inflation. So where is inflation going? Are things becoming too expensive, not too expensive? What sort of monetary policy there is? So those would be a few high-level things that we look at while studying a new country.
Thank you very much, Mahima. You gave in a huge ray of hope in saying that India is progressing at a very high speed of 7%. So we are looking at a very bright future. Thank you very much for talking to us, Mahima. Thank you very much for watching, and we got some very good news coming from a very senior economist. Keep watching ANN News. Thank you very much.
Please don't forget to subscribe our channel and also click the bell icon to get the latest updates.